Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Kayla and I make videos about my life as a full-time artist. If you'd like to stick around, please consider subscribing down below. Now let's get on with the video. So today's a great video. I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I was able to save up $10,000 in less than a year at 18 years old. Before we get into this, I just want to mention that everybody's situation is different and everybody's financial situation will be very different. At 18 years old, I was living at home. I had taken a year off after high school before going into college, so all I really had to do was work. I was not in school. Again, I was living at home, so I didn't have to pay rent somewhere. I live in Canada, so the minimum wage that I was being paid is different than if you may live in another country. I was working at a job that paid just above minimum wage. There's a lot of different factors, and I don't want to act like, oh, I did it, so of course everybody else will do it. I believe that you can do it. I believe that it's a lot more possible than people may think, but I'm not going to preach that this is going to be just as easy for everybody else. And especially this year, a lot of people are in really different financial situations than they wanted to be at no fault of their own. So I am putting out this video to encourage people, if you're able to, if you're in a position to be able to save money. I hope that this video is inspiring or that gives you a good idea of how to get that snowball rolling. Not everybody's in a situation where their main focus, where most of their money goes, can just be to a savings account. And I don't want this video to be insensitive to everybody that is in a different kind of situation. But if you're in a position right now to really start saving, if you're maybe a teenager or you're working part-time and you're spending your money, you're enjoying it, but you're thinking, how about I just start saving a little bit now? Or you see a friend of yours that's accumulating a lot of savings and you're wondering why you're struggling to keep $200 in your bank account, this video is for you. If you're just finishing high school, if you're in high school right now, it's the perfect time. As you get older, your expenses just keep getting bigger and bigger. So when you're young, it's really, really important to start thinking about your savings because it's easier now than ever. So what I actually did that year when I was 18 years old, I had just started working at Home Depot and I really wanted to build my savings. I think at the time I had saved $3,000 in my bank account and I was working at a snack bar like maybe 2-3 times a week, I believe. But I was really always focused on saving because I always believed that money led to freedoms, and I still believe that to this day. But I did have a little chunk already saved of $3,000. Those practices that I had started using at that time, I just amplified them to be able to save another $10,000. I think that year changed my life, and so I want to share what I did with you guys as well. First things first, I think when you're considering getting really hardcore with saving your money, you need to identify where it goes. When you get your paycheck, where is your money distributed to? Does it go to certain bills? Does it go just to food, to clothes? Where does it end up? And what can you cut back on? Now, things that are luxuries, I guess, or not necessities, those are what you're choosing to spend your money on. After your bills are paid and your commitments, the payments to your commitments have been made, the other areas that you're spending your money on, you're consciously choosing, okay, I want my money to go here instead of staying with me. A nice way to look at it is when you get paid, remember to pay yourself. If your place of employment just gave you a paycheck and immediately you spend the entire thing over at Nike, at McDonald's, in the mall, whatever you end up spending it on, you just paid all those other businesses, but there's nothing left over for you. You didn't pay yourself. And I think that a lot of people are accumulating items and accumulating things and feeling satisfied from that. But it's so important to remember to pay yourself and not just in things. So not everybody needs to have the same goal. It doesn't need to be $10,000 in a year. Depending on how much you're willing to cut back and how much you care to save will dictate what you do. It was super important to me, and I knew that I did not want to fail. I knew that I wanted to have money in my bank account. And it gets kind of addicting. Instead of that satisfying feeling when you buy something new and it arrives in the mail, when you see your bank account reach that next 100 or reach that next 1,000, that's the new addiction that you're chasing. If you want it bad enough, I really, really believe you can do it. I was working part-time, which meant that my paycheck every 2 weeks was not the same. Some weeks I would work a ton of hours and some weeks I would work very short hours. It depends on the busyness and the season. The best plan for me, I couldn't do a percentage amount because again, that would be different every 2 weeks. If I decided to put away 20% every 2 weeks, that 20% would be something new. I calculated what I needed to put away every 2 weeks to be able to have just over $10,000 in my bank account by the end of the year. So the magic number is $385. 385 put away 26 times, which is bi-weekly within a year. At the end of the year, will leave you with $10,010. Before we go any further, if you do not make $385 every 2 weeks, if you make just over $385 every 2 weeks, I would say to still pursue your savings goal, but adjust it to make it work for you. I'm really grateful that I was working enough to have made more than $385 nearly every week, but on the weeks that I did make a ton more, I would save some extra so that the weeks that I didn't make a ton more would make up for it, if that makes sense. So this all needs to be adjusted for your life and how you want to do things. But for me, 385 was my magic number. Now, during this year, I was frugal like I have never been frugal before. And I think that it's really great to start changing your behavior and really start being self-aware of your spending habits and how you're living your life. But it can also go to the extreme. I think I may have taken it to the extreme this year, but I don't regret it. I've learned so much and I learned a lot about my self-control. So some of these extremes that I'm talking about are that I would go out to restaurants with friends, still trying to be social, but I wouldn't order anything. Or I would order a soup. I remember doing that a couple times. I never ordered drinks at restaurants. Like even if I was ordering food, never get a drink, always water. That is an easy way to save a bit of money. I never picked up drinks daily from a Tim Hortons or a Starbucks. If you are a coffee drinker, even if you just like to grab a tea or a breakfast, see if you're able to swap that out and make something at home. Food is a huge sucker of our money, and we're getting so used to fast food. We're getting so used to eating out. It's no longer a treat. It's no longer something special or reserved for a birthday or celebration. It's just something that we do daily and we barely think twice about. So I'd encourage you to really focus on how much you spend on food, fast food, and quick one-time meals, things like that. Once you found this magic number, to make sure that it's possible, you really need to calculate your expenses. This will be groceries, subscriptions, your phone bill, car bill, your rent. Once I figured out my expenses, I could figure out how many hours I needed to work so that at the end of 2 weeks, I'd be able to receive enough to cover my expenses, but also to be able to put away the $385. An easy way to do this is to take $385, add that to whatever amount your expenses are, divide that by your hourly rate, and that will leave you with the hours required to make that amount of money at the hourly rate you are being paid at. Now, I really want you to get into the mindset that once you pay your expenses, the rest of that money belongs to you, and you make the choice to spend it on things or to keep it for yourself. Personally, I have got so much more freedom from having savings. At 18 years old, my boyfriend and I went on our first trip all alone, and that was only made possible because we both had enough savings to pay a few $1,000s to fly to San Diego. And every year since then, all of our trips, excursions, anything that I want, even the car that we just got, it's all possible, not just because of the money we're bringing in, but also because we've got a nice, comfortable lump sum behind us so that we have more freedom to make these decisions. And we're not stressed about our bills. We're not stressed about the money that's coming in because we know that we've got some when we need it. You make the decision. Once you have that money and you keep it in your savings account, you have the choice to let it sit there in that account, to spend it, or to invest it. If it makes things easier for you, you could give yourself a limit of what you'll be able to spend every 2 weeks as well. You could give yourself a limit of $200 every 2 weeks to spend, $100 every 2 weeks to spend. A lot of people go to the mall in their free time. We definitely can't do that right now because of the circumstances of the world. But if you're somebody that browses, shops online in your free time, see if you can fill that with another activity as well, because it's really hard to save your money when you're constantly looking at things that you want to buy, or you're constantly being fed advertisements advertisements of things that they know you want to buy. It's really, really hard. Just avoid those websites completely if they're too tempting for you. Also, within this year, I walked everywhere. I did not have a car yet. I didn't want a car yet. And walking is a great way to save money. Even if you already drive, yes, unfortunately, you'll still be having to pay your car payments or your insurance, whatever it may be, but cutting down on gas when you can walk somewhere easily, it's a great idea to do so. It's good for you, it's good for the planet, and it's good for your wallet. Another thing that I so rarely did while I was working was buy food at work. This is also killer. Please figure out a way to make your meals at home if you can. And if your shifts are really short, maybe you don't even want food. If you're working maybe 4 hours or something like that, maybe you don't even need food at all. But if you are working full 8-hour shifts, it is important to eat, but try your best to prepare that beforehand. If you're spending $10 to $15 every single day while you're at work just to eat at work, one of those hours you're working, one of those hours and a half is for nothing. It's already gone. You've already spent that money that you're still earning. That's kind of just how I started to look at money to motivate myself. If I was paying for something, depending on how much it was, I would think, okay, this is how many hours? How many hours did I have to work to be able to afford this? And is it really worth it? At the beginning of this challenge for myself, it was really difficult. I wasn't sure if I would reach it. I wasn't sure if it could be possible. But as I got through the year and I saw that I was able to do it, it got way easier. You really need to push through that initial change at the beginning. Things are going to be different and you're doing something good for yourself. It's a change that you need to get used to. But I promise it will get easier. You'll get used to it. And then by the end of the year, being able to look back and be like, holy crap, I reached my goal, or I beat my goal, I exceeded my goal. Being really frugal may just last a year, but some of these habits you may continue on in your life and they may benefit you later down the road as well. In this year of being frugal, I also didn't spend my money on nothing. I actually traveled within the same year. I went to Ireland and England for a few weeks all by myself on a solo trip, paid for by myself, everything. And of course, that was a huge expense. That was a huge chunk of money that I decided to take out of those savings. But I personally wanted to spend money on travel more than I wanted to spend money on clothes and food and things like that. So you don't need to never treat yourself. You don't need to never spend your money on yourself, because that's also a way to celebrate yourself. Like, saving your money is great for you, but treating yourself is also nice. You really just need to focus on what you want the most, like what's really important to you. If that's clothes, if that's a bunch of pairs of jeans, then that's great. But if you want all those jeans more than you want the savings, you need to recognize that you're not going to reach the goal. You have to care more about your savings than about the things that you're gonna get. So that's been my experience of when I saved my first $10,000 at 18 years old. I hope that this information was helpful to somebody. I really want you guys to just take away from this video that it's possible. You are able to do way more than you think you can, and you're able to accomplish so much if you just put your mind to it and if you want it bad enough. I hope that this year brings you all the best financially, mentally, spiritually, and every single way possible. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.